Machiavelli wrote The Prince in 1513, and you've tried the dark tactics from it. You've been cold, you've used the silences, you've quoted the lines. And yet, you're still being passed over. You're still the one getting manipulated. The problem is not Machiavelli. The problem is that you're trying to perform surgery with a butter knife. In the next 20 minutes, I am going to show you the 3 missing gears that turn a try-hard manipulator into a sovereign leader. You hear, it is better to be feared than loved. You do not hear the condition, if you cannot be both. That one missing clause explains half the wreckage you see in business, politics, dating, and social power. Most people can quote power. Very few can execute it. They extract the ruthlessness, discard the architecture, and then call the chaos strategy. Today, we isolate the exact failure points in how people apply Machiavelli, then rebuild the full system the way it was meant to be used. Because quoting power and executing power are different species. Most people read The Prince like it's a self-help quote book for confidence. It wasn't written for that. It was written in 1513 by a man who had watched republics collapse, alliances break overnight, mercenaries switch sides, and rulers lose everything because they misread one room at the wrong time. Machiavelli was not writing affirmations. He was writing a survival manual for zero-sum political combat. That context matters, because once you remove the context, the text becomes a weapon in the hands of amateurs. The Prince gets quoted. The discourses on Livy get ignored. Most people never study Machiavelli's complete political philosophy. Look at the quote everyone knows. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. Most people remove the second half and keep the first half because it sounds sharp. Then they run a blunt strategy, become intimidating, become cold, become hard to approach. Make sure people know you're not the one. This mirrors what you see with misreadings of Sun Tzu or other strategic classics. People grab the aggressive lines and miss the diagnostic framework underneath. What happens next? People comply in public and sabotage in private. Allies stop sharing critical information. Opportunities slow down. Reputation hardens into difficult, then volatile, then unreliable. Then the person using this strategy says, Machiavelli doesn't work. No. Their extraction doesn't work. Machiavelli did not prescribe random cruelty. He described power mechanics under specific constraints. If your position is unstable, if enemies are active, if institutions are weak, if legitimacy is contested, then certain hard moves become necessary. Necessary is not the same as constant. Most readers fail here. They convert situational instructions into identity. Machiavelli says, deploy this tool when conditions require it. The misreader hears, become this person forever. A surgical blueprint turns into a personality disorder. This is actually what psychologists call the Machiavellian personality trait, when strategic thinking becomes compulsive manipulation. You can see this in modern professional life. Someone gets one small management role, reads one summary of The Prince, and starts performing dominance, short replies, public corrections, strategic coldness in every interaction. They think they are building authority. What they are building is organized resistance, because unpredictably hostile people don't inspire loyalty. They trigger coalition. Humans are social strategists. When one actor becomes unstable, others align against him. So again, the problem is not Machiavelli. The problem is incomplete extraction. People keep the steel and throw away the compass. They keep the line and lose the logic. They keep the image and miss the engineering. Before diagnosing the failure points in detail, you need to see what the complete system actually contains. At the center of Machiavelli's system is not cruelty, not charisma, not alpha energy. It is virtue. Virtue is the capacity to shape events instead of being carried by them. It includes courage, timing, calculation, adaptability, discipline, and the willingness to act under uncertainty. In plain terms, can you impose your will on circumstance without losing control of second-order consequences? That's the test. The second half of the system is Fortuna. In chapter 25 of The Prince, Machiavelli explicitly argues that fortune governs half of our actions, leaving the other half for us to direct with virtue. Most people ignore this 50% and try to force the world to bend. That's where people break. So the mature operator never confuses outcome with merit. Sometimes you execute perfectly and lose. Sometimes you execute badly and still win. This matters because people who imitate Machiavelli usually assume total control. Then fortune moves, conditions change, and they panic because their identity strategy cannot adapt. Imagine a CEO who does almost everything right. Then a global pandemic detonates the market. Fortuna in action. If his only move is be feared, he is finished. If he has virtue, he pivots fear into a common enemy and reorganizes fast. He does not panic, he re-architects. Stop looking for alpha body language ticks, start looking for the incentive map. If you can see why your boss is afraid, you don't need to act cold, you just need to move the thing he is afraid of. Virtue in practice. Machiavelli's strategy is adaptive by design. Read the room first. Map the incentives. Estimate the temperature. Then choose the tool. Timing is not decoration in this system. Timing is structure. The same move can be genius on Monday and suicidal on Friday. The same tone can stabilize one audience and provoke another. The same show of force can end one conflict and start 3 new ones. Serious operators ask diagnostic questions before they touch a lever. What game is being played here? Legitimacy, survival, expansion, or containment? Who pays if this move fails? Who quietly benefits if I overreact? What happens 2 moves later if I win this 1 move now? Most people never ask these questions. They respond to emotion, then retroactively call it strategy. Machiavelli's model is the opposite. Diagnose first, move second, narrate last. And that's why universalized internet Machiavellianism fails. The Prince was written for a specific man, in a specific crisis inside a specific political ecosystem. Using it as a universal personality template for modern life is like using a battlefield triage manual to run a marriage, a startup, or a sales team. You might find one useful principle. You will misuse 10 others. Machiavelli's real insight is brutal and simple. Power is situational, not stylistic. Most people want style because style is easy to copy. Wear black, speak less, never apologize, be feared. But style without diagnosis is theater. Machiavelli's operator is not theatrical, he is diagnostic. He does not ask, "Who should I be?" He asks, "What does this configuration require right now?" That question changes everything. Because now ruthlessness is a tool, not an identity. Patience is a tool, not weakness. Generosity is a tool, not softness. Opacity is a tool, not mystery for its own sake. Most people copy Machiavelli's image while skipping the diagnostic skill underneath it. That's the core problem. They look strategic. They are not strategic. Once pressure rises, the gap gets exposed immediately. Understanding the theory is a hobby. Misapplying it is a suicide mission. Here is exactly where you are likely bleeding out. Machiavelli makes a distinction that almost nobody quotes and almost everybody needs. Cruelty can be well used or badly used. That line is everything. Cruelty well used means force applied fast in a concentrated burst to remove immediate threat and restore order. Then Stotts. Cruelty badly used means force applied repeatedly, emotionally, unpredictably, and for too long. Badly used cruelty does not signal strength. It signals fear. Think about it from the audience perspective. If a leader keeps punishing over and over, what do people infer? Not confidence. Dependence. They infer that control is slipping, so punishment must be repeated to compensate. That invites testing, then resistance, then alliance formation against the punisher. Now look at Machiavelli's own historical reference point, Cesare Borgia and Ramiro de Orco. Borgia used Ramiro to impose hard order in Romagna quickly and brutally. Once order was established, Ramiro was found in 2 pieces in the Piazza Cesena on December 31, 1502, with a piece of wood and a bloody knife beside him, transferring fear and blame away from Borgia while presenting Borgia as the bringer of stability and justice. Brutal, yes. Random, no. It was precise, contained, and politically timed. Most people copy the look of that story but miss how the machine actually works. They hear "be mean" and start picking fights they cannot finish. Public humiliation in meetings, personal attacks in negotiations, retaliation for minor slights, cold punishment with no strategic endpoint, not Machiavellian. It is unregulated aggression. Unregulated aggression creates an obvious target. Ask yourself right now, Is your current conflict about solving a problem, or about making sure they feel your shadow? If it's about the shadow, you've already lost. People tolerate one explosion if they can predict the boundary. They organize against repeated explosions because now survival requires collective defense. Badly applied force produces the opposite of what the operator wants. He wanted fear, he gets coalition. He wanted compliance, he gets silent sabotage. He wanted control, he gets surveillance from everyone in the room, waiting for him to make his next mistake. The correct application is cleaner and harder. If force is required, define the objective first. Apply it once, proportionally, with clear signal, then stop. Stopping is part of the force. If you cannot stop, you are not using power. Power is using you. Also critical, depersonalize action. Machiavellian force is mechanical, not emotional. The moment punishment becomes personal, the system starts leaking. Now the conflict is no longer about order. It is about ego. Ego conflicts are expensive because they never end at the original issue. They spread. They infect recruitment, communication, trust, and long-term optionality. Most self-styled Machiavellians fail here. They escalate when they should consolidate. They continue when they should close. They make it personal when it should have stayed procedural. Then they wonder why everyone they dominated is now quietly aligned against them. Because force was never supposed to be a personality trait. Force is a controlled explosion, not a lifestyle. The cruelty failure point is visible. Everyone can see it. The next failure point is less visible and more lethal. The lone wolf is a myth sold to people who are destined to lose. If you are standing in an open field with no cover, you are not a threat. You are a target. Machiavelli knew this. He feared neutrality more than he feared a declared enemy. Here is why your temporary transactions are actually a death sentence. If you read Machiavelli carefully, one obsession keeps resurfacing: alliances. Who is bound to whom? Who will move when pressure rises? Who stays neutral? Who defects first? He repeatedly warns that neutrality in high-stakes conflict is dangerous. One of his blunt lines says it clearly. A prince is also esteemed when he is a true friend and a true enemy. Why? Because committed alignment creates predictable support structures. Neutral posturing creates vulnerability from both sides. Modern people who cosplay Machiavelli usually do the opposite. They trust no one, commit to no one, signal that everyone is expendable, treat every relationship as a temporary transaction. It feels hard. It looks strategic. But it produces a strategic disaster. At decision time, they have no one who will move for them. Power without movers is theater. The Renaissance courts Machiavelli studied did not run on isolated geniuses. They ran on networks of obligation, patronage, protection, reciprocal risk, shared enemies, negotiated loyalty. A ruler's strength was not just his own intelligence, it was the reliability of his network under stress. Could he call and get action? Could he lose a battle and still retain support? Could he reward loyalty in ways that kept the network durable? Call that alliance architecture. Machiavelli also warns constantly about weak alliances, borrowed arms, mercenary loyalties, and partners who can consume you. But warning against weak alliances is not advice to walk through every conflict alone. It is advice to choose strong alliances with precision. Call that selective loyalty. Who gets access? Who gets confidence? Who gets protection? How tight each bond should be. When to deepen, when to distance. Most modern dark psychology content erases this layer because alliance building is less glamorous than dominance theater. There is no viral clip in watching someone spend 5 years building reciprocal credibility, but that quiet work is what decides outcomes. Look at Lorenzo de' Medici. His durability did not come from walking through Florence alone, glaring at rivals. It came from managing a dense web of patrons, artists, bankers, church actors, family interests, and civic relationships through calibrated generosity, favors, debt, image, and timing. Strategic generosity was not softness. It was infrastructure. Infrastructure has maintenance costs. You do not keep alliances by threatening everyone equally. You keep them by distributing value in a way people remember when pressure hits. People forget promises. They remember who showed up when risk was real. That memory is political capital. Once it compounds, your network becomes self-reinforcing. Once it erodes, no speech can patch it in time. The alliance blind spot kills modern operators because they confuse paranoia with intelligence. Paranoia says trust nobody. Intelligence says trust selectively, bind deliberately, verify continuously. Those are not the same. If your model treats every person as an adversary, you may feel safe in peacetime, but you will be exposed in conflict. When real pressure hits, isolated actors discover the same truth at the same time. No army, no shield, no relay network, no second line. Machiavelli would call that political suicide. The operator who survives is not the loneliest one. He is the one who can mobilize committed relationships faster than rivals can organize against him. So yes, be careful with alliances. Test everyone. Avoid naive trust. But do not build a system where no one is bound to your outcome. Not ruthless, fragile. Fragility stays hidden until the exact moment you can least afford to discover it. The third failure point is the one that collapses the whole system when everything else looks fine on paper. Machiavelli dedicates an entire chapter to appearance management, especially chapter 18. This should tell you how central perception is to the system. Yet this is where modern users fail in the most embarrassing way. They project the strategy. They want everyone to see that they are calculating. They want everyone to feel that they are running game theory in real time. They broadcast coldness to signal depth. By doing that, they destroy the advantage. Machiavelli's famous image is that a prince must be both lion and fox, force and cunning. But the crowd is not supposed to see lion and fox. The crowd is supposed to see legitimacy, stability, public virtue, competence. If they can see the machine, the architecture collapses. Once an audience labels you manipulative, every clean action you take gets reinterpreted through suspicion. Your options shrink. Even your ethical moves look tactical. Even your restraint looks staged. You become transparent in the worst possible way. Performative Machiavellianism fails fast on social media and in offices. We've all seen that guy, the one who read Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power once, and now stares at everyone intensely in the break room. He thinks he's a lion. Everyone else thinks he's a joke. Don't be that guy. The lion does not need to tell you he's a lion. You can smell the kill on his breath. The operator keeps signaling that he is the smartest predator in the room. He smirks through meetings, overuses silence, telegraphs calculated pauses, and speaks in obvious frame control scripts. He thinks he looks dangerous. He looks obvious. Obvious operators are easy to isolate. The correct model is invisibility of process, visibility of outcome. People can see the result. They should not be able to map every move that produced it. Truly effective operators rarely look like operators. Cardinal Richelieu is the historical parallels, one of the most strategic figures in European politics, yet publicly framed as a servant of crown and faith while engineering state centralization with ruthless sophistication. His power came not from announcing cunning, but from embedding it inside a legitimate narrative others could accept. This was the essence of raison d'etat. The state's interests justify extraordinary measures, but the public face remains respectable. That's appearance discipline. Appearance discipline is not be fake. It means understanding perception as a primary battlefield. You can be strong without looking erratic. You can be cunning without looking slippery. You can be decisive without looking theatrical. Most people fail because they are hungry for the image of power, not the effects of power. So they perform strategy instead of executing strategy. Performance has a tell. It seeks witnesses. Execution does not. Execution seeks outcomes. If you remember one line from this section, make it this. When people can see your method too clearly, your leverage is already declining. The serious problem with modern Machiavellianism is not that Machiavelli is wrong. It is that people imitate the costume and leak the method. Once the method leaks, it dies. Use this as a perception audit. After any high-stakes interaction, ask, did I look stable or theatrical? Did I force people to focus on the outcome or on me? Can they predict my next move too easily now? If the room leaves talking about your style, you lost ground. If the room leaves adjusting to the new reality you created, you gained ground. That difference sounds subtle. It is not subtle. It is the line between temporary intimidation and durable authority. So what does a complete, correctly applied system look like when all parts are active together? A real Machiavellian operator does not wake up and act Machiavellian. He runs diagnosis first. What is the terrain? What is unstable? Where is leverage? Who matters? What does this moment reward and punish? Then he selects tools. If force is needed, it is precise, limited, and closed quickly. If alliance is needed, it is built through a history of trading favors that actually got paid back, not sentimental trust. If perception is contested, he stabilizes appearance while moving underneath with discipline. It is a system, not a mood. Virtue in this model is not a personality. It is a calibrated stack of capacities. Read conditions, act decisively, adapt fast, absorb shock, and consolidate after action. Fortuna still exists. Shocks still happen. No one controls everything. So the operator's aim is sovereignty, not dominance for ego. Sovereignty, the ability to act without begging for permission, the ability to move without over-explaining, the ability to secure outcomes without exposing the full mechanism. Here is the corrected framework in one line. Diagnose the situation, identify leverage, select the tool, execute invisibly, consolidate the outcome. Most people stop at tool selection. They fail there because tools without diagnosis are random. Execution without invisibility creates counter-coalitions. Success without consolidation evaporates. Run one quick scenario. You are leading a team. A high performer undermines you privately. The amateur move is immediate public humiliation. Short-term fear, long-term fracture. The complete move is to quietly move that high performer into a special project with no visibility and no leverage. You do not fire them. You evaporate their influence. Then you promote one loyal operator into the lane they left open. Same problem, different design, different outcome. Machiavelli's serious problem, then, is not philosophical weakness, it's audience mismatch. The people who most need the full system are usually the ones most attracted to the superficial version. They want the look of danger, not the burden of discipline. But discipline is the whole game. If this system feels less glamorous than internet quotes, good. It should. Fortress building is not glamorous while you build it. It is just load-bearing. Here is the final difference. The man who quotes Machiavelli carries a weapon. The man who applies Machiavelli knows exactly when to draw it, when to hide it, and when to never reveal it existed. Not ruthlessness. Control. The philosophy was never the real problem. The incomplete read was. Machiavelli only works when three disciplines stay active at the same time: force, alliance, and perception. Break one, and the structure cracks. Break two, and it collapses. Most people will watch this, nod, and go right back to performing Machiavelli badly. They will keep staring too long in meetings and sending short emails, wondering why they still feel small. Don't be a performer, be the architect. Build the fortress while they are still playing with the costume. If you're not most people, subscribe. This channel is not for the aesthetic of power. It is for the complete architecture.